That's what I recommend. That's what usually gets rejected.
We'll segue right to you on that one.
I wanted to go back to something you were talking about just prior to that last question. You mentioned you mentioned the importance of the I'm sorry and you're forgiven. So kind of along those lines, in your experience, what are positive ways that a city can move forward after a high-profile incident while facing civil liabilities due to that incident?
I told myself that I would not comment on the case that no doubt has brought most of you to this room this evening, because I don't know. I've read a couple of newspaper articles. I've seen a clip, I think, of the video from the store. But by no means do I really know what happened. Here's what I do know. Police officers, after conviction, gathered around the individual officer involved who was in fact convicted and attempted, if my story is correct, if my source is correct, and I think he is, attempted to keep whoever it was, the marshals or whomever, from taking this individual into custody or handcuffing him. They were able to exact a promise that he wouldn't be handcuffed, and all 50 of them saluted this officer. Depending on where you sit is how you see the world. From where I sit, that was a slap in the face of the community. Yes. It was insulting to the memory of the family. Remember that a man is dead. I don't care what the circumstances are. A man is dead and somebody loved him. And the message, I think, that gets communicated in that very graphic, very symbolic gesture is one that might send chills up the spines of police officers who've rallied together, have defended a brother officer, done all those wonderful and generous things, and really made him feel, I don't know this man, so I'm just, in this sense, being hypothetical, made him feel very much loved by his brothers, his colleagues, brothers and sisters, presumably. But I think it was a tone-deaf gesture that rubbed a lot of salt in some wounds. I mean, that's how I personally reacted to it. So the question that you've raised, and that I'm neatly avoiding, is how, given everything that's happened to this very moment, how do we repair the damage? Number one, I think, by acknowledging the damage. Our reputation has been strained. It has been tainted. We may agree or disagree with certain aspects of certain kinds of, or certain controversial cases, including this case, so on and so forth, but we get it. We know we have had our image and our reputation tainted. We accept the responsibility to work with you, the community, to move forward from here in a positive and constructive way. One of the most fascinating phenomena, I think, in the field of justice is truth and reconciliation, whose most graphic example came out of South Africa. I did it. I was wrong. I'm telling the truth. Well, what do we do now? Put you in jail? Put you in prison? Fine you 10,000, what is it, kroner? It's out there. That's what I said, rand. Yeah. In South Africa. I don't know. What do you want? You know, as a community, what would be healing? What would be persuasive as to future steps? And to be an active, engaged participant in that, representing the rank and file, strikes me as incredibly valuable. In large part because I have to say this, and it's not a reflection on you or this community, it's not expected. It's adversarial. The union and the union officers are going to take the position that either we did everything right, or if we agree that there were some things done wrong, and we want to improve this situation, it's got to be bargained. And the last thing I would do, by the way, is try to dissuade a union from taking that position. The last thing I would also do is ask management to cave on an issue like that. I think, quick story. And I'm definitely talking out of school, and I apologize, but I really do think it's instructive. When John Diaz, the chief in Seattle, did not fire an officer who kicked a man in the head and said he's going to beat the Mexican piss out of him, he was deeply personally offended. Not just as a Latino, but as the chief of that department. I know he was. I saw several interviews. I could see on his face, in his eyes. He was really, really offended. And when the investigation was finally completed, a decision was made not to prosecute. And by the way, I do favor prosecutors prosecuting where there's a prosecutable case. There were a couple of times in my career, not that many really, but a couple of times in my career when I thought, geez, Mr. Miller, District Attorney, geez, Mr. Maley, help me out here. I'm trying to send a message that this behavior that we both know was criminal is deserving of prosecution. And once again, that's a point of contention. It's a point of stress between management and labor. Certainly when somebody like me says, why don't you prosecute this guy? Because it helps the process. In any event, John said, when he decided to give the officer, whose name is public, but I won't repeat it, when he said, I wanted to fire him, but I couldn't. What do you mean you couldn't? He said, my attorney advised against it. The operative verb is advised against it. He said, we'll lose it on appeal. So what? My gosh, you have just created a precedent. You have created a vacuum in effect, on the side of truth and justice. I mean, so you get overturned. At least you did the right thing. And I will tell John that the next time I see him. You know, I'll scold him.
Okay, Rachel?